Over the last 20 years, there has been a 47% increase in women-owned businesses in Australia. And women now represent 36% of small business owners in the country. Now, unfortunately, despite these encouraging statistics, most women small business owners in Australia never get past the $100,000 mark in annual revenue in their businesses. And by most, I mean more than 80%. And only 2% of women-owned businesses make it past the $1 million mark. But why is it that so many business owners struggle to make scalable revenue and profits? In today's episode, we're going to take a look at the 5 biggest challenges that women business owners face. And these are challenges that I've seen time and time again and experienced multiple times myself. And more importantly, we're talking about how to tackle them head on. And a heads up, this episode might make you a little angry. I know these statistics make me kind of furious, but there's also something about these statistics that light a fire under me to keep providing support for women business owners to get the success that we deserve. Ready? Let's get into it. Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Her Business Podcast. I'm your host, Susie Daphnis, and today we're talking about why women business owners aren't making the money that they are working their butts off to make and how you can face these challenges in a different way. So let me set the stage with a few statistics. Now, a couple of these I mentioned at the introduction to this episode, but I'm going to say them again. And that is that in the last 20 years, there's been a 47% increase in women-owned businesses in Australia. And that is fantastic. So that's, in the last 20-something years. So I just celebrated 30 years of business, and I can tell you the landscape is totally different now, and I love seeing so many women in business. Now, women represent, here in Australia, 36% of small business ownership. And get this, women business owners are statistically more educated than our male counterparts. So we're more educated, we're super ambitious, and the thing is we are more resourceful than ever before. So why aren't we thriving financially in the same way that the men are? So why is it that only 13% of women-owned businesses generate more than $100,000 a year? Why is it that only 2% of women business owners generate more than $1 million in a year? Now, there are so many studies out there today that show this stark contrast. And let's be honest for a second, it's kind of heartbreaking to hear because I truly believe that with the right resources and support, all women business owners can have better statistics than what we're seeing here. We can all be creating businesses that really give us more back than if we had a job, right? That's the whole point. We want to be earning more. We want to have a lifestyle that's better. So we could have so many more women hitting 100,000 and beyond. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that this really is my mission. Inside Her Business Network, on average, our members earn more than the average small business in Australia. And we are not done. Right? We want to help a lot more women be hitting these numbers. So if you are listening, you're in the right place. So I started my first business in my 20s, and I was able to grow various businesses to this level. I was lucky to find the right resources, the right mentors, the right networks, and of course I worked my butt off to be part of that 2% of women who get their businesses to at least $1 million. And let's be honest, that percentage was likely not even 1% when I started business 30 years ago. But because I got there, because I was able to connect and get educated, and it wasn't traditional education, I don't have an MBA, I actually finally got to a point where I could retire because I was financially free from my businesses. But I think if I had retired back when I could, these numbers would just haunt me. And so I'm on a mission. I've been trying to fight these statistics the best way I know how, and that is helping other women business owners get the resources they need to succeed, which turns out has been a pretty good and rewarding way to do it. And I've seen countless women join the Her Business Network who were consistently pulling in less than $50,000 a year, some much lower than that. And I've seen them get the resources and the network and the education and the support and find the mentors and the strategic alliances and the co-creators and grow thriving 6- and 7-figure businesses. That's why I still do what I do this many years later. And while the majority of the Her Business podcast episodes are about just that, giving you resources and advice and strategy, this one is going to step back just a minute because we're going to explore 5 of the main things that hold women business owners back from success and growth in the first place. Now, before I dive in, I want to mention that this is somewhat of a 2-part episode. I want you to listen to this episode first, and then I'm going to give you the details of an episode that we just released over on the Content Sells podcast. That's another Her Business podcast, and it's one that I host with the wonderful Michelle Falzon. Now, it is more a marketing podcast. So what I would like you to do is listen to this so that you have the understanding, and then head on over to that podcast and I'll explain why. That episode dives into the action steps and the strategies and all the elements you need to craft offers that sell. Because what I'm going to tell you about today is those things that are holding us back, what to do about them, but part of it is how do you get more sales? And that's what that episode is designed to help you do. So I'll say more about that and I'll tell you how to get that in a moment. So this episode is kind of about the why the statistics are the way they are, why we see this divide, and why we need to focus on specific areas to grow. So after you finish this, make sure you listen to episode 254 of the Content Sells podcast to actually understand how you can go about actually making more income through your offers and really breaking down the barriers that we're talking about here. But understanding what they are, recognizing them in yourself is such an important place to start. So let's have a look at the first reason women business owners are making less money than they should. Number 1 is normalizing undercharging. Now, this is a scenario I see all too often. A woman business owner launches her product or her service, but instead of charging what it's truly worth, she sets her pricing low. Why? Well, it could be a number of things. It could be the fear of scaring people off. It could be feeling like, I don't know if I'm worth it or if my service is worth it. The truth is, when we undercharge, we are not just undervaluing ourselves, we are teaching our clients to undervalue us too. But it's not like as women, we are just innately undervaluing our services. It comes from a whole load of history. Now, historically, there have been so many factors that have contributed to this. And if we think back to what was normal and legal all through the 20th century, women were limited to roles within the home or low-paying jobs, if we go way back. And this reinforced the perception that women's work was less valuable. And even as women entered the workforce in greater numbers over the last 50 years, these expectations still had kind of this limited thinking around it. And research done by Stanford University found that women have internalized past low pay scales and now kind of use them as an internal barometer, as a benchmark. And we're comparing our salaries and pay to that of other women rather than men in similar positions or similar businesses. Interesting, right? So this idea that we undervalue our services is absolutely rooted in a systemic problem that women have dealt with for centuries. Now, our products and services are not less valuable, but the expectation to undervalue them is kind of built in. And so it's a mindset that we really need to shake. And I find that many women business owners feel like they're walking a tightrope with pricing. You can price too low and not even cover your costs, really. You can price too high, but be scared to do that because you might drive clients away. But the truth is, pricing shouldn't be just about covering your costs. It's a reflection of the value that you bring to the table. It's not about your capability. It's about having the confidence to ask for what your work is worth. And what your work is worth is not just what your competitor is charging. It is thinking about what you are putting into, what you're delivering, the experience that you have, the value that it represents to the client. What is the client going to save by using your product or service? How will their life be changed? All that should be part of your pricing. But like I said, the companion episode is going to show you where pricing fits into the whole idea of crafting your offer. Now, I want you to not be afraid to scare off a few potential clients who don't have the budget for what you do. They're likely not your ideal client anyway, and what I have found is often the people who are penny pinching are not my ideal clients, and they're not going to stick with me in the long term. So I encourage you to stand up for the quality of your work because you know it's good, and to price yourself accordingly. I'll give you a link to a resource for that in our show notes as well. The second thing holding women back from making the money they want is over-delivery. So this is connected to what I just talked about, but women business owners consistently over-deliver on their services without getting compensated for extra work. Now, I'm all about exceeding client expectations. That is something I think we should aim for, but there's a fine line between going above and beyond and just giving away way too much value and way too much time. And this can come from wanting to ensure your client is satisfied, loves your stuff, but when you consistently offer extras without fair compensation, it can only lead to one place, and that is resentment and burnout. That's two places, resentment and burnout. Now, you deserve to get paid for your services and your products that you're providing to your customers. Now, I found this issue especially common for small business owners who tie their self-worth with their client outcomes. So instead, you want to really define the scope of whatever project you're working on, whatever service or product you're delivering, and really stick to that scope. And if you find yourself doing extra work, offering bonus after bonus, saying yes to every request, then you might have a problem with over-delivering, and it might be time to set some boundaries. So you want to offer value, absolutely, but you want to make sure you're compensated for it. So I invite you to stand up for yourself and really claim that's out of scope for this project, but here's what it would cost to add it in. And the client will know your scope if your offer is really clearly crafted. And that's why the companion episode for this one is going to come in really handy. Now, reason number 3 is all about this fear of being salesy. We have a whole episode on this subject because it's such a common roadblock for women. You have a fantastic product or service, but when it comes to ask for the sale, you back up, you hesitate. You don't want to seem pushy, or you don't want to come across as being too much. You shy away from shouting your offer from the rooftops, an offer that you should be really proud of. And this stigma around being salesy or loud holds so many women back. And we go deep into this on episode 290 of the Her Business podcast, which I will link to you in our show notes. And that episode was just a couple of weeks ago, and it's titled More Sales, Less Marketing, How to Take the Yuck Out of Selling. And that episode is with one of our members, Frances Pratt, who's a sales expert. Now, in that episode, we talk about the root of what sales are. Now, you don't have to feel like you're being demanding or uninvited when selling or being too much. It's really about, as Fran explains, about connecting to your audience and showing them that you have a great and easy solution to what they're struggling with. You're helping that person with what you provide. So what is reason number 4? Now, this one is a little bit annoying to me. There are significant and research barriers for women in business to get funding and resources. And this is actually backed by undeniable data. A study that was published by the Harvard Business Review showed exactly how biased investors can be against women. Now, I think whether you are looking for investor money or not, you're going to find this really interesting. One experiment involved 2 identical pitches to investors. One was presented under the name David and the other under the name Laura. Now, these pitch decks, so that's like a proposal that you put to an investor, they were identical. But David, the one with the name David on it, consistently received higher ratings and more funding offers than Laura. And the study found that female entrepreneurs are frequently asked different lines of questioning during their pitches when they're asking for investor money. Now, investors tend to ask male founders questions on how they plan to scale, while asking female founders more prevention-focused questions about how would they handle and mitigate risks and losses. So clearly, and this is the frustrating part, there's some disparity when it comes to getting funding for your business. Now, while the example I'm giving you is for people who are going to investors for money, the same thinking could apply when you are putting forward a proposal for a tender. The same thinking could apply when you are going for a government grant. And you might be thinking, well, there's nothing, Susie, that I can do to change my confidence or value my services if this is what's happening in society. So how do we overcome that? We just become super freaking successful. That's how we do that. And that is why I want to jump to reason number 5. And that is access to mentorship networks and resources. Now, a study done by SCORE found that business owners with a mentor are 5 times more likely to experience business growth. My mentors have played such an important part in my business growth. Peer mentors, mentors at a distance, and mentors who I've worked with one-on-one. And it's so important for women business owners to seek out places where they can access educational resources, get advice from other business owners who are in the same spot as them, get quality mentoring from people who have grown businesses before, and building a network with other people in their industry and also other people in their same situation. So my network includes a lot of female business owners and some men as well. And we are all business owners. And in my case, a lot of my business network are women who are they have membership style businesses. And I'm in a marketing mastermind as well. So really finding people around you who are doing what you want to do. Now, the Her Business Network exists and has existed for almost 30 years because we offer all these wonderful things, right? You can access mentors, you can get advice from other business owners, you can find strategic alliances, you can get quality peer-to-peer mentoring, you can access me and my support. Now, if you are listening and you are not one of our fantastic members, then I'm sure you're still fantastic. And I'm going to encourage you to get on the wait list for the network. You can just head over to herbusinessnetwork.com now and request an invitation. There's no cost to do that. And if you just want to keep listening, I'm going to put the details for how to join the waitlist in our show notes page as well. So I want to talk about why creating your offer is so important to handling each of these challenges that we've mentioned here today. Now, we have a saying that your offer is not just your product or service. It's how you position it. It's how you price it, what you include in it, how you package it, how you sell it. Because people do not buy your product or service. The saying we have is they buy your offer. So if you learn to get your offer just right, and that is how you price and name and package your products and services, you're going to see less and less pushback when it comes to your pricing. You'll see that you'll stop over-delivering because the scope of your offer is clear from the get-go. And you won't have to deal with being salesy anymore because your offer will stand for itself. This is when I'm going to point you over to the second half of this topic, which I cover with my Content Sales co-host, Michelle Thousand, over on the Content Sales podcast. We've talked about the barriers, the historical roots, and all the roadblocks that women face in business. But now, how do we get past those? And as I said, part of that is just becoming wildly successful. And being able to sell our products and services is how we break that ceiling, that income ceiling. You'll learn the exact strategies on crafting an offer that sells over on episode 254 of Content Sales. You'll also get a great worksheet that you can complete and access to a training that we are doing all around crafting offers that sell. And so you'll be armed with all the resources you need to break past that 100K ceiling and beyond, and maybe you're stuck at 500,000 or $1 million. It's going to be really helpful for you. So you will find those details over at herbusiness.com/293. So herbusiness.com/293. You'll see a summary of this episode. You'll see a link to the podcast I've just spoken about. You'll see resources to anything I've mentioned here. And I know that those statistics, they really do worry me, that only 2% of business owners reach 7 figures. But most of us don't want a 7-figure business. We want a healthy 6-figure business. But again, when I look at that, it's only 13% of business owners. It frustrates the heck out of me. And that's why we are doing what we are doing. And this is the year of the offer. We've declared it inside of Her Business as the year of making offers that convert. So if you want to be part of that, then get onto the Her Business Network waitlist at herbusinessnetwork.com. Now, I want to mention an episode we did a couple of weeks ago because I think it's a really good one for you to listen to. If you run Facebook ads at all or you're thinking about it, then we did an episode with Tina Hay of Puzzle Media about a strategy that you can put in place for 2025. And while we are sort of getting into the year now, you want to check that out, right? Because it's still early enough in the year for you to put a great strategy together. And I know Tina loved recording this. She loves sharing her expertise. And one of our other members and previous guests, Erica McInerney, said that it sounded super helpful and thanked us for doing that episode. So once again, where to go now? Go ahead and head on over to herbusiness.com/293. You're going to find a summary of what we've covered today and links to other resources. So you want to join us in the next episode for more inspiring stories and lessons from female entrepreneurs. If you're new to the show, excuse me, be sure to hit subscribe or follow to catch that episode. And join me next time right here on the Her Business podcast. Bye for now.